All right, so let's do a quick review of all the complex sentence types we went over. Normally, I don't do anything like this with trying to teach this many so quickly. I'm going to try a slightly different strategy of maybe reviewing many different types more often, but faster. Rather than trying to cover any one of them in detail. Because the thing is, with your writing and even with everything that you're reading, you're encountering all the different types. And if we did one after another, it would take us like 16 or 18 classes to go through them. We'll do separate sessions on relative clauses. Mainly, you're only using the first type, but there are 4 others that I'll cover in an upcoming class. There's 2 others that are very frequently used, and there's 2 others you definitely need to know. There's another type of noun clause that I'll cover in a separate class. Participles, the ones that we're doing right now are by far the most commonly used, but there are also perfect participial phrases that come in handy on occasion that we'll cover in a separate class too. Okay, but let's go through these as quickly as we can. Okay, so just a quick review. Independent clauses. Clause, again, means subject and predicate. And Allah, what does a predicate mean?
Predicate means verb. Verb plus object.
Yeah, usually an object, it could be something else, but I love pizza is your predicate, right? So that's what a clause means. So independent clause, simple sentence, that's your most basic sentence form. Compound sentence would be like level 2. And compound sentences, you've just got one independent clause and another independent clause with a coordinating conjunction right between them. How do you remember the coordinating conjunctions? By this acronym SOIBAN. So what does SOIBAN stand for?
So, or
yet, but
and
nor.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah, very simple formula. So a dependent clause also has a subject and a predicate, just like an independent clause, but it's not a complete idea on its own. So for example, so if I just say the weather is nice, this is an independent clause. But if I do something like because the weather is nice, is that a sentence now?
No, need independent clause to explain the meaning.
Exactly.
Give the meaning.
Because I've added this subordinating conjunction, it's no longer a complete idea on its own. It still needs an independent clause. Because the weather is nice, we went for a picnic. So a sentence fragment just means you do something like this and put a period. So if you do that, I'll put SF. Okay, and from just based on experience, let's say 8 or 9 times out of 10, the way to fix this is to attach this dependent clause to either the sentence before or the sentence after. It's usually connected to that. Run-on sentence, the most common type is a comma splice. Use it by a car, comma, he needed medical attention. Okay, so you've got an independent clause here. You've got an independent clause here. You're not allowed to just split them with a comma. So there's 4 solutions. The first one, the easy one, just use a period. He was hit by a car, period. He needed medical attention. You end up with baby English here. It's correct, but it's baby English. 2, change one of the independent clauses into a dependent clause. So just putting because at the beginning, because he was hit by a car, he needed medical attention. You could use a coordinating conjunction to make a compound sentence. He was hit by a car, so he needed medical attention. Or finally, we talked about semicolon sentences. He was hit by a car, semicolon. We've got this conjunctive adverb phrase. As a result, he needed medical attention. You could also put a period here, but you can use a semicolon, conjunctive adverb, phrase, comma, combo. Very easy way to add variety to your sentence structures. Okay, so this brings us to semicolon sentences. In terms of the formula, both sides of the semicolon must be independent clauses. Okay, so you've got to have an independent clause plus semicolon plus conjunctive adverb plus comma plus another independent clause. Most common mistake in this is that one of these is not an independent clause. And then you end up with a fragment on one side. Okay, so we went through these last time. You need to be familiar with these. A common mistake is to confuse conjunctive adverbs with subordinating conjunctions. So subordinating conjunctions begin subordinate clauses. Conjunctive adverbs go in front of an independent clause. Right, we talked about subordinating conjunctions. So these words belong in this category. They don't belong in the conjunctive adverb category. Relative clauses, also known as adjective clauses, begin with which, who, that. The most common usage is to give the significance of something at the end. The patient has a high fever and headache, comma, which means he might have coronavirus. Okay, so which means is a super common usage of relative clauses. We also talked about non-defining versus defining relative clauses. So when we have the guy who started work here last week is late already, then we have Peter who started working here last week is late already. Right, Safa, why are these different? Why does one of them have a comma? Why does one of them not have commas?
Who started, okay, the guy who started working here last week is late already. Peter, who started working here last week already. Okay, as I know, if we put like independent clause first, we don't need to put a comma before dependent clause. But here, it's like Peter is late already.
So grammatically, these sentences are identical. So this is your independent clause. The guy is late already, and then Peter is late already.
Yeah, because the second one, it's like it's not like a complete sentences or independent clause.
Because there is a noun, I think.
Well, they're both nouns. The guy is a noun.
Also noun.
Mm-hmm. Peter's a noun.
The guy is late already. This is independent clause.
And then Peter is late already is another independent clause.
Peter.
Dina, can you
Actually,
explain this one?
when
Yes.
you were reading loudly, it's just I feel like there is no
Yeah, because for
Quite natural.
the second sentence, Peter is well known, so we are like defining. So it's extra piece of information. While the first one, the guy, we need to go further. No, who's this guy? So we need this piece of information is important to describe the guy. So no need to put comma.
Yeah. Peter's specific already. If you say Peter is late already, I know who you're talking about. So just as Dina said, this is an additional detail. But if you say to me, the guy is late already, I'm going to say, which guy? Then you have to specify the guy who started working here last week.
Okay.
Right, so this noun is non-specific. Peter is very specific.
Yes.
So when the noun is non-specific, you need this information so that the reader or listener knows what you're talking about. And you would read this straight through. Like if I say this first one, the guy who started working here last week is late already. There's no pauses. Peter, who started working here last week, is late already. And there's natural pauses where the commas are. Okay. It's this is a parallel situation. So that's for people. For people, you use who. For stuff, we use that or which. The machine has broken down already is our independent clause. And in the second example, the X501 has broken down already is our independent clause. They're identical in terms of structure. And here, if you say to me, the machine has broken down already, my question's going to be, which machine? The machine that we bought last week. If you say the X501 is broken down already, I know what you're talking about. And so, which we bought last week is an additional detail. You're just expressing the fact that, oh my gosh, this thing is brand new. We just bought it last week. It's an extra detail. Here, I need it to, in the first example, the machine, I need that detail to know what you're talking about. The machine that we bought last week is broken down already. No pauses. The X501, which we bought last week, has broken down already. Now, a typical issue with relative clauses. So the punctuation in a relative clause, it's important, but it's not a killer to the extent that this issue is. This is what's called a misplaced modifier. You might hear me using this word modifier.
Excuse me.
Yep, go ahead.
Just I have a question before to go further.
Mhm.
The X501, why we cannot use that? The meaning is like with the which it's more better, but because I saw the that with the red, there is any grammatical issue here?
Yes, so this is just convention. There's no logic involved here. If it's a defining clause, you can use that or you can use which. Doesn't matter. Traditional grammar, a traditional grammar book will tell you to use that in this situation. But most authors don't care. Even in prestigious journals, they'll use that, they'll use which. If you can remember this, then use that. However, in this situation, if you use that, it's considered incorrect.
Okay, that means if there is any doubt, better for your which.
Yes, if in doubt, use which. Right. In this situation, when it's a defining clause, when it's a specific subject, so it's a so it's a non-defining clause. When it's just an extra detail, it's always which. Always, always, always. Okay. So you'll often hear me use the phrase modifier. Any clause Any dependent clause or any phrase is called a modifier. So preposition phrase, subordinate clause, relative clause, participial phrase, they're all called modifiers. It's a very general term. Relative clauses need to go right after the thing they're modifying. They can modify the entire sentence, like when you have the example of which means. Which means refers to the idea in the entire independent clause that comes right before. The patient has a high fever and headache. So that whole thing means he might have coronavirus. But in many cases, the relative clause, like here, Peter, who started working here last week, it refers specifically to Peter. And when the relative clause refers to a specific noun in that sentence, it must follow right after. So if you said, for example, if you did this, Peter is late already, who started working here last week. This is what's called a misplaced modifier. Okay. In this situation, in contrast, business Facebook posts have more than 2 peaks, which are mostly opened later in the day. What does which are mostly open later in the day refer to in this sentence?
Business Facebook post.
Exactly. Not 2 peaks, right?
Yes. So after post, you put it which.
There we go.
Yes.
Does that make
Sorry.
sense?
Yes.
And this one.
Sorry, say again, please.
I couldn't understand this one. I don't know.
Okay, so I'll just go through that again then. Relative clauses. Sorry, I was using this this phrase modifier. Relative clauses are what's called a bound modifier. Do you know when I say bound, bound means like tied together. You know, like a binder.
Yeah.
Or the prisoner's hands were bound. It's a bound modifier that needs to go right after the thing it's modifying. So in the case of Peter here, the relative clause who started working here last week refers specifically to Peter, right?
Yeah.
So the relative clause needs to go directly after Peter. A mistake I often see is something like this. Peter is late already, who started working here last week.
Okay.
What this means is that this modifier, this relative clause, is in the wrong place. It's in a confusing place because when people see this, just because it's been such a consistent pattern for their whole lives, their brain automatically connects the relative clause to the thing that's right before. So if you do something like this, the reader's going, is late already, who started working here. What? Who does who refer to? So it's a very confusing construction. So that's why the who started working here last week has to come right after Peter. So this is this one here is an example that I saw, I think yesterday or the day before.
This is in my essay.
Oh,
I wrote this.
That's yours. Okay.
Yes.
So business Facebook posts have more than 2 peaks, which are mostly opened later in the day. So what is which? In relative clauses, these words who, which, and that, these are called relative pronouns.
Only these three relative clause, which, who, that.
Whom, I think
Also whom, sometimes where. Where can be both for subordinate clauses and for relative clauses. So these are called relative pronouns, and pronouns are words like he, she, it, we, they. And these are just called relative pronouns because they start relative clauses. So when you have this relative pronoun, it represents, like here, Peter, who started working here last week. Who is Peter? These are the same thing. I don't know if you remember, a little while ago I told you that nouns are only allowed to have one job. Right? A noun can be the subject of a verb, or it can be the object of a verb, or an object of a preposition. It can't be two things at the same time. So I can't do something like Peter started working here last week, is late already, because then this noun is the subject of this and is the subject of this. So we can't have that situation. So we've got Peter is the subject of the verb is, that's your independent clause, and then in the relative clause, who started working here last week, started as your verb, and its subject is who. But this, the bottom line is this just needs to go directly after the thing it's describing. So in Allah's example, this which, this relative pronoun, Safa, what does which refer to?
I'd like which are mostly open to Facebook posts.
Yes. So it refers to business Facebook posts. It doesn't refer to peaks.
Mm-hmm.
If you keep it here, my brain looks at the directly preceding idea, which is two peaks, and I'm confused. How are peaks opened later in the day? It's just in the wrong spot, that's all. So it has to go here directly after business Facebook posts. It can't go anywhere else in this sentence.
Okay.
Remember in the previous class, we had that example where we had the subordinate clause in the middle of a sentence. And then we moved it around. We moved it to the beginning of the sentence, we moved it to the end of the sentence, and it was perfectly fine at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. Mm-hmm. Right? In that case, that was an example of an unbound modifier. It's not tied to any specific word in that sentence. And if that's the case, there's lots of places where you can put it. And it's your choice where you want to do it, whatever sounds better to you. But with a bound modifier like a relative clause, it's just got to go directly after the idea it describes.
Okay.
So that's all. So if you see misplaced modifier, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, appositives. Very, very simple grammatical construction, super common. So this is a sentence, I don't know if it's anyone from this group, but we've got the sentence, furthermore, business LinkedIn emails reach a very high percentage of viewers at around 11 a.m., which is 55%. And this is a pretty awkward construction. So we want to transform part of the sentence into an appositive and move it to a more appropriate location. So I'll just let you figure this out. I'll give you 1 minute to think about it, and then I'll ask someone how they would fix this. Okay, I'm going to ask Rama. Is Rama there, or did she step away?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. How would you fix this?
Okay. Furthermore, business LinkedIn emails reach a very high percentage of 55% viewers at around 11 a.m. 55% of viewers.
Reach 55. Okay, so that's one way to do it. There's more than one way that we can fix this. So you say again how you did it.
Business LinkedIn email reach a very high percentage of 55% of viewers.
This is better than the original. We can still do better than this.
After emails, we put which, comma, which.
Okay, so Allah, what would your sentence be?
Like furthermore, business LinkedIn emails, which reached a very high percentage of 55% of viewers at 11 a.m.
Which reach a very high percentage of at around 11 a.m. Like this? Is this what you mean, or did I make a mistake?
Just yes.
Okay. If you do this, I will put this.
Why?
That's the million-dollar question. Okay. What is your independent clause?
There is no dependent. Around 11 a.m. maybe.
There's no independent clause.
Yes.
You've got this noun phrase, business LinkedIn emails,
Yeah.
and then the rest of it is a relative clause. So you're missing a predicate for this part. There's no predicate for this part. Remember, relative clauses have their own subject and predicate. The subject is which, and this is the predicate. But that's not the predicate for the independent clause. Okay. So let's go back to this one. This is an improvement over the original.
Mr. Yan, this, for Rama sentence, where is the appositive? There's, we need to put comma?
So there's more than one way to fix this. So yes, she has improved it, but there's no appositive yet.
Yeah, no, because unless she put comma before at, in the first sentence, 55% of viewers, comma, at around 11 a.m. Not this sentence, the first, I am looking for the one before.
Mm-hmm. This one, the original?
No, the second one, after that. Yes, this one.
So it's, to my ears, it doesn't sound awesome. A very high percentage of 55% of viewers. It's okay, but we can make it a little bit better.
My question, shall we put comma before at or no?
No, don't need it.
No need. So this is one not opposition.
Well, this is not an appositive. No.
Can I try one?
Yep, go ahead.
Business LinkedIn emails reached 55% of viewers between 2 comma a very high percentage at 11 a.m.
Okay. Reach
55% of viewers. Maybe, yeah.
So this is an appositive.
This is an appositive. Okay.
There's another way to do it.
I think furthermore, business LinkedIn email viewers, then comma, reach a very high percentage of 55% at 11 a.m. Or does
No.
it?
Here there is no independent clause again.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about if we put like furthermore business email viewer, business email viewer, comma, reach 55%, comma, very high percentage at 11 a.m.
There is no verb for the.
I think something changed. We're missing the 55%. Okay, let's simplify this. Business LinkedIn emails reach a very high percentage of viewers at around 11 a.m. Where should the 55% go in here?
After reach.
Where else could it go?
At the beginning.
No. What does the 55% refer to?
Viewers.
Yeah. So an appositive, in terms of where it goes, is just like a relative clause. It's a bound modifier, and it needs to come directly after the thing it refers to.
Same as before, which is 50. Well, usually we write which is 55%. So
yeah, but if you use a relative clause here, it sounds awkward. Because a very high percentage of viewers and 55% are exactly the same thing in this construction. So this is not really a description. This is identical to a very high percentage of viewers. So this is why an appositive is more appropriate here. There's no need to put which is, because they're exactly the same thing. It's like saying your friend John needs help.
Okay, so what is the what is the independent clause here in this sentence? Furthermore, business LinkedIn emails.
This is the independent clause.
And the appositive, it will work similar to the relative clause?
Yes, it goes, in terms of placement, it's exactly the same. It needs to go right after the thing it's describing. So if it describes a very high percentage of viewers, or if it's the same thing as those viewers, and it goes immediately after. And I love these because there's no grammar. It's just a noun. It can be a noun, it could be a noun phrase, it could be a noun clause. Just like here, this one's acceptable too. It's a little, in my mind, it's a little bit funny in terms of the construction, but like in this situation, it would be more appropriate, let's say, the highest level seen in the study this would be a more typical example. This and this are exactly the same thing, so the appositive is the most appropriate construction for this situation. We'll see examples of this later today. Okay, not everything starting with who, that, which is a relative clause. So we're not going to spend much time on this, but if you have something like this, I don't know who did it, the construction is I don't know what. Okay, so this is an object. I don't know John. John is the object of don't know. This is the object of don't know, which makes it a noun clause. I didn't know that it's not available. Same thing. I didn't know what. I didn't know that it's not available. And here that means the fact. I'm not sure which is the right one. Same thing. I'm not sure which one I should buy. I'm not sure what to do. Those are all noun clauses. Okay. Participles. We talked about those a bit earlier. That's like saying the exciting performer, the excited crowd. Does anyone have any questions about these? Why is it the exciting performer and the excited crowd? How do we know which one to use?
We use ed when we when the noun or people experience the feeling came after the verb.
Yeah. Right. Because the crowd doesn't cause the excitement, the crowd experiences the excitement. So when you're talking about the experiencer, you use the passive participle. The performer is responsible for causing the excitement. You use the active participle. And in terms of participial phrases, the most common way to think about them is, well, let's look at this example first. If you've got a subordinate clause with an active voice verb, it becomes an active participial phrase. Okay, and as we mentioned before, the time information is only in the independent clause. So if I have this sentence, walking through the woods, we will probably see deer. So this is future. Walking through the woods, I always see deer. This is present simple. This is the same. This is the same. Okay. And now we've got two examples here. While we were driving to work, we saw an accident. How would you transform this into a participial phrase?
We remove while and we.
Mm-hmm. Remove while, remove we. What about were? Do we keep that or do we remove it?
We will remove it as well.
Right, get rid of all the auxiliaries, all the helper verbs.
Mm-hmm. And just the ing. Driving to work, we saw an accident.
Yes. And how about this sentence? So this one is present simple. When I drive to work, this is all the time, I often see accidents. How would we transform this into a participial phrase?
Remove when and I. Change drive to driving, driving to work.
That's it.
And I will keep I often see accident. Yeah.
It's always the same. If you've got a passive voice verb, because she was shocked by the news, she wept. Okay, so we've got a passive voice verb. How do we...
Thing,
Sorry?
Same thing. We remove all the subordinating words and the auxiliary. Remove because, we, and keep ed. Shocked by the news.
Yep.
She wept. Yeah.
Because he was given a second chance, he did much better. Whoops, sorry about that. He was given. Okay. I gave him, he was given. So was given, passive voice. How do we transform this into a participial phrase?
Remove because he was and keep given. Given a second chance. He did much better. Yeah.
Exactly.
Can we change the order, like he did much better, comma, given a second chance?
Yes. Yes, you can. This is considered better writing because it's shorter and it conveys the same meaning. This is, again, both of these, the transformations are significantly shorter than the examples. They're evidence of more mature writing. That's always, it's such a mindset difference, especially for my younger students. They all want to write as much as possible. It takes a lot of convincing to show them that better writing is conveying the same idea using fewer words. That's the number one rule of editing. Okay, and then we have relative clause transformations. And whether it's a relative clause or a subordinate clause, the participial phrase always looks the same. So we have the sentence, we often see, whoops, not that deer. We often see deer that are walking in the woods. This is our relative clause. How do we transform this into a participial phrase? Rama? She might have said.
Yes.
Okay. So how do we transform this into a participial phrase? Can somebody help her out?
We often see deer remove that R, walking in the wood.
That's it. So this, sorry, I hate it when it does that. This and this are exactly the same. It looks exactly the same if it's a subordinate clause transformation or if it's a relative, or if it's a relative clause transformation. The appearance is identical. It's another reason I love these. The grammar is really simple. No subject, no auxiliary, just ing. Okay, so we've seen subordinate clause transformations, we've seen relative clause transformation, and the last one is just an independent clause. So here we've got an independent clause. This is the same example as above. He was given another chance. He did much better the second time around. He was given another chance is the same as given another chance. Okay, any questions? We covered a ton of stuff. Does anyone have any questions about anything we covered today?
Very fine.
No, no one's head is going to explode. Okay.
Hopefully, easy, but it's very difficult to write.
So understanding is always step one. So that when you're reading, especially, when you're reading and you look at these structures as you're reading, you can identify them. You say, oh yeah, I know what that is now. Oh, I know why this sentence is structured this way. So let's look at a...
It
Sorry,
took
go ahead.
ages. I mean, it took ages until you... I mean, as he said, this is step one. But you will... As he's repeating every time, it will be crystal clear.
Well, once you understand, I mean, such an important part of language is massive amounts of reading. Because the brain is a pattern recognition machine. That's essentially its whole purpose is to identify patterns, remember patterns, and then predict patterns. The pattern recognition theory of mind. And you have to fill your head with tons and tons and tons of input. It's just like how they train AI. They give it a huge amount of input to train itself on. And it's the same with us and reading. It's really hard to pick up grammar principles and grammar patterns from a small amount of reading. You have to read a lot. And then as you're reading, these patterns that you see are not just going to be unconscious patterns. You then start to understand what they actually are, and you start to understand, okay, this is why the author made such and such a choice. And it's only after you understand that you can start applying that to your own writing. Okay. Let's look at some examples. I had some examples related to media, but then this morning I was just reading through Statista, and it's one COVID-19 example after another. So I thought, hey, what the heck? Why don't we just talk about coronavirus? Okay, so these are not the ones, I've got 3 of these, and these are not the ones that you're going to do for today's assignment. This is just the ones so we can talk about grammar for a little bit. Just looking at this graph, what does it show you? Let me ask Allah.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
The graph shows the new cases and the daily new cases and deaths due to coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So, and then, okay, so that's your first sentence. That would be your introduction. You would obviously have to paraphrase it, but what comes next is?
The date between March and April.
Yep.
Yes.
And then your next sentence starts with generally speaking, in general, overall.
Yes.
So overall, what is the purpose of the graph? What does it want to show us?
Okay. Overall, the graph demonstrates the number of cases from 1st March till April, right?
And what has happened? So what's the big pattern that the graph shows?
Yes, like the number of cases is gradually increasing from the 1st of March and reached till the highest points at 20th of March.
Mhm.
And then it decreased. Then it dropped.
Mhm.
It dropped from 7,000 cases to 5,000 in 25th of March. Then the graph rised. Then the number of cases was increased to 65,000 case in 26th of March. After that, the number of cases was dropped from 56.
Well, this is about 6,000. This line
6,000.
here.
Yes,
Yeah.
6,000 from 6,000 to 4,000.
Or about 4,500.
Yes.
Okay, good. I just heard you make one mistake twice. You said was increased and was dropped. The number of cases was increased, the number of cases was dropped. That's passive voice, right?
Yes. Drops.
Yeah,
Drops.
dropped or just increased. So don't use passive because that doesn't work. And I'm glad you caught yourself too. Yeah, so don't talk about the graph itself. So don't say the line increases, the graph increases, the bar increases. Just talk about the thing that's actually increasing. So the number of new cases.
Yes.
I have one question, Mr. Ian.
Mm-hmm.
For this one in overall, because the date is 3rd April, looks like today.
Mm-hmm.
So the type of sentence is we use it present perfect because in the past and up to date, or as past, just in case if they, but I don't think in the exam they give it on the same day.
No.
Ending.
No, and they're probably also not going to talk about coronavirus.
Yeah, I don't think so. But like just in case as a grammar, in this type of question, we use present perfect because starting in past and ending today.
Well, today's the 4th already, so we're getting into some technicalities here.
Yeah,
so
but like if it is today 3rd.
Then it would say the number of cases has reached 4,500 today.
Yeah, so it's a present perfect, has increased.
If today were the 3rd of April, yeah.
Otherwise, today will all in the past.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
The number of cases rapidly increased between the 1st of March to about the 20th of March. At which point it decreased before rising again after the 25th of March, at that point, it seems to have started declining.
Yeah.
All right, let's read the description here. And we're going to analyze this for grammar. Safa, can you read, please?
Yeah, sure. April 3rd, 2020, global cases of COVID-19 have surpassed the 1 million infection, with nearly 60,000 dead worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
Italy began a massive quarantine of the country, northern Lombardy region, early in March, and has since extend this lockdown to the entire country indefinitely, while the United States has overtaken them in total number of cases. Italy still leads the world in total death thus far.
Mm-hmm.
Total cases of COVID-19 have quickly increased in Italy, with a peak of 190, 827 as of April 3rd.
Okay, so just a quick pronunciation note. It's pronounced April.
April 3rd.
Yeah, and this number, the first part is the thousands, right? Because in English, the numbers are grouped by thousands, so it would be 119,827.
Okay, 119,827 of April 3rd.
April.
April 3rd. Daily new cases, however, have started to steadily drop, with 4,585 new cases reported on April 3rd. The death toll in the country.
Death toll.
Death toll in the country has continued to soar, reaching 14,601. 14,681 as of April 3rd. The highest toll of any country in the world. Overall, the recovery rate is reported at 56.8% of all cases in Italy as of April 3rd.
Okay. Any questions about the vocabulary?
No.
Okay, so just a quick review then.
To soar, this is, that means it's like increasing quickly, or what's the meaning of soar?
Well, birds soar. Soar means fly at a very high altitude.
Okay.
So increase to a very high level, you can use the word soar. Okay, just a quick review. What does indefinitely mean, by the way?
So without knowing the time that when they will start again, so it's to close for a long period of time.
Yep. Okay, what do you call this structure?
Yeah.
What's that thing called?
Subordinate.
Good. Subordinate clause.
Because, like, while similar to because?
Yes, it's in the same family. So while. So what kind of word is while? Do you remember what that category of words is called?
While?
Mm-hmm. While, because, since, although.
Yes.
Adjective conjunction. Adverb, sorry.
Conjunction is correct, but we have several kinds of conjunctions in English. Conjunctions are joining words. So we had the coordinating conjunctions, soyban, but these are called
subordinative, I think, something like that.
good subordinating conjunctions.
Yes.
Good. I just wanted to point out again that you don't have to put however at the beginning. The author could have written, however, daily new cases have started to steadily drop. However, daily new cases, however, have started to steadily drop. This is good for variety in your writing. So when you say on the other hand, or however, even when you have got a whole clause starting with although, it's not necessary to put it in the beginning. And as I mentioned previously, if you put the modifier in the middle, it's evidence of a more mature level of writing. What about, I really like this sentence. I'm just going to, okay, we're not going to talk about hyphens for now. Hyphens are like an all-purpose kind of punctuation. Could have used commas here. So in this sentence, what do we call this thing?
Participle phrase, I think.
Good. Active or passive?
Active.
This is active.
Yeah. And then how about this thing that's right after it?
Positive. Appositive.
Now, if you were to rewrite this sentence in simple sentences, how would you do that?
In what? We write it in what?
We're going to rewrite it as simple sentences. So the death toll in the country has continued to soar, period.
Which?
Let's do simple sentences. It
reaches.
Good. It has reached. Okay, so this is our simple sentence here. So very nice writing. Independent clause. That's too many clues. Okay, Rama, if you're there.
Yes.
Tell us about this next graph.
Okay, this is shows us the age group of coronavirus affected people in South Korea and Italy.
Mm-hmm. Good. So that's your context. Now, what's your general overview?
Generally speaking, people in the mid-ages in South Korea have shown the highest percentage of people affected, while in Italy, Italy shows the highest percentage in seniors.
Okay, good. Does anyone have like another way to describe just the general overview? Just grammatically speaking, everything that Rama said is perfectly correct. Does anyone have a different way to phrase the general overview?
Okay, generally speaking, number of cases in South Korea between 10 and 19 years old reached to 5%.
We're just looking for the general overview, so that's too much detail for that.
Okay. Yes.
Can I try?
Go ahead.
Yeah. People in South Korea who aged below 60 has the higher or are more affected than Italy.
Mm-hmm.
While in Italy, people aged more than 60 are more affected. I mean, when...
Mm-hmm. Sure, that's another way to do it. Does anyone have another?
Yes, I think. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Generally speaking, number of cases in South Korea has reached to the highest percent in age below 60 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, in Italy, the number of the number of affected. No, on the other hand, the cases. I don't know.
Or Mr. Yan, by age group, we can say the 20 to 29 age group in South Korea, whatever the number of patients, no, not, I mean, they are by far the highest. While in Italy, the group of people age 70 to 79.
The grammar is a little bit off. Let me give you, perhaps it's easier to do this while writing than speaking. Let me give you 2 minutes to write down just a 1-sentence general overview in the chat box. Just the general overview. Okay. Okay, I see Rama's here. South Korea. South Korea confirmed cases by age shows the highest percentage in the middle age group. Really, most cases was shown in seniors. Okay. Got Safa's. And we've got Dana's. Rama, I'm going to come back to yours. It's kind of awkward. Okay, Safa, you've got 2 fragments. By the coronavirus outbreak. And this is awkward. Why does it do that to 5%? On the other hand, in Italy. Okay. Here's what I really like. This last part of Allah's is really good. This is good. Let's start with Dina's. Overall, it can be clearly seen that South Koreans aged 20 to 29 are the most affected group by the coronavirus outbreak, while in Italy, people in the 70 to 79 years old. I mean, we could spend a whole class talking about how to describe age groups. This is one of the most common areas of difficulty.
I wish, because, yeah, I find difficulty in this part, how to, when we have age group, how to like do synonym. Okay, I know this type. The first one, South Korean's age, I know the style, but what if you have another one? At least 2 or 3. Almost twice I got in the exam with the chart with age group.
How many times did you do the exam, Dina?
3. 3 times, yeah, IELTS, and before TOEFL 7 times.
Jeez.
And
okay, so we've got people aged 70 to 79. This is a common way to do it. We have people in the 70 to 79 age group, or you can call it category. Those aged 70 to 79. 70 to 79 year olds.
I thought, yeah, about this one.
Yes, I used to put years and olds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the simple way to fix this, while in Italy, people and the people. Yeah, we can also do people 70 to 79 years old.
Okay.
People who are 70 to 79 years old. So how come this one, how come this one says years old and this one says year olds?
The first one, its year looks like it is an adjective for alls.
Mm-hmm.
But for the second one, I don't know. For the people 770, why here years old? Why the first one?
Okay.
Something related to people.
So this one is just the short form of the relative clause one. People who are 70 to 79 years old. If someone asks you, how old are you? You would say, I am 12 years old. I am 50 years old. She is 80 years old. So she is 80 years old.
Well, in that way, shall we put after people comma? Because it's like, I think like appositive. The people.
No, and appositives don't need to be inside commas. Not always.
Not always.
So what if I did, so she is 80 years old. She is an what comes after 80 now?
Year olds. Year old. Old only, not old.
Yes.
Because an.
How about now?
There are same 80 years old. What is?
They are both 80
year olds
with an S, right? Because now it's they.
What about first one? Also they. The first sentence on the same line.
Yes. They are both 80 years old. She is 80 years old. They are both 80 years old. The only time that would be different would be, how old is your baby? He is 1
year old.
Year old. He is a 1
year olds.
Year old. What if you have twins?
Years.
Are both 1
year olds. I'm out.
Here the position of after are like he is 1 year old. It is adjective. 1 year old. He is the 1 year old. All of them in a part of speech, it's adjective?
Well, no,
Or
it's a noun.
it's a noun. Mm.
She is 80 years old.
Mm.
Now, if we switch to 2, he is 2 year or years?
2 years.
Old.
Years old.
And if you've got twins?
2-year-olds.
Yeah.
But I think the first maybe 5 or 6 lines, this is what we need really.
Mm-hmm.
We consider the first 6 examples.
Okay, so in yours here, while in Italy, people, how do we fix this?
Yeah, can we say people 70 to 79-year-olds?
No. We can do. Now it's okay. People 70 to 79 years old.
Yeah, years old.
Right, and this is a short form of this. People who are 70 to 79 years old.
Mm.
Are the higher one affected?
Are the highest group affected in Italy?
I would say are the most affected group.
Because I wrote, yeah, I know. The first one I wrote the most affected.
Are the most affected group. What's another way if you wanted to use the same thing?
The greatest?
Are the group most affected? You could flip it around.
Mm.
Have the most cases.
Mm. Yeah.
Are the most affected group. Are the group most affected?
Why
Both.
here higher is not correct? It's also comparison, or because this age group is among the others. So we need to use superlative. Superlative.
Because they're not the higher. They're not a higher group.
Among
They're,
Italy. Among
yeah,
Italy, they're the highest.
Like you're not ranking the groups. It's about which group has the most cases.
Mm.
The question for this statement would be, which is the highest group? It's just an awkward construction. Like here, you did it correctly. Are the most affected group.
Yeah, it is this because we use most, and it is superlative.
Superlative.
Superlative. How you pronounce superlative?
Like it's like super, but it's superlative.
Superlative.
Superlative, superlative, superlative.
Mm.
Let's move on to Safa. Do you understand why I put these SFs in here?
I try.
So where is the independent clause?
I think because I didn't mention coronavirus.
What is, okay, the shortest sentence in English must have what?
Verb.
Sorry, say again?
Subject and verb.
Well, technically, stop, go. These are sentences. Like a stop sign is a sentence, so it has to have a verb.
Mhm.
Etymologically, the word comes from verb. Verb and word are based on the same root. So the verb is the most important word in a sentence. Do you have a verb in your first sentence?
General speaking. No.
Remember, even though it's ing verbs always have auxiliaries. If an ing word does not have an auxiliary or helper verb, it's not a verb. I am speaking, you are speaking, I was speaking, I will be speaking. Generally speaking is just a phrase, it's not a verb. It's a trick question. You are missing a verb.
Mhm.
Confirmed.
The way to fix this, and this is a sentence form we didn't talk about today. It's covered in the sentence structure part of the course, but you need what we call a dummy subject. You need a dummy subject construction here, right where the cursor is. Two words. Three words, sorry. Third word is a. There are. Between ages. Among the elderly. What about the second one? You can do the same thing. Where should you put there are? Safa, you have the equivalent here of saying
5 people.
this is what you've got. 5 people in the room.
Okay.
We often do this.
There are 5 people in the room.
You could say 5 people are in the room.
Mhm.
This is a dummy subject, right? Because there doesn't mean anything. There are just means there exist, right? It means nothing.
Okay.
But we use this to preserve this sentence structure format. So in contrast, in Italy,
Okay, there are
that's
a
it.
huge number of cases among the elderly people.
Now it's okay. Now turning to Rama. South Korea confirmed cases by age. South Korea. Could we just get rid of this? Or can we move it?
Yes.
Where should this go?
At the beginning, confirmed cases in South Korea. Oh no.
South Korea showed the highest percentage.
Of confirmed cases?
Yes.
That's it. And then we can get, this is redundant in the middle, whoops, in the middle-aged groups. Well, in the younger groups, no? Okay, so you have to be accurate in your general overview because it's not just the middle-aged groups, right? It's also the youngest groups. In the youngest...
But I mean like from 20 to 15.
But it's also, look at the 10-year-olds, 10 to 19-year-olds. There's 5 times as many cases. And there's even more cases amongst the youngest. This looks like a small difference in absolute terms. But from 0.5 to 0.8, that's like from 50 to 80, that's over 50% higher, right? So that's many more cases. So we'll put highest percentage of confirmed cases in the youngest to middle-aged groups, while in Italy, the most cases, not that they were shown in seniors. So don't talk about like the bars or the lines, just talk about what the bars or the lines represent. Most cases are among seniors. Okay? All right. Is this my second one or is my third one? Okay, let's see how much time we have for these because I want to get to our writing. Do you guys want to take a break now?
Okay.
Say how long of a break would you like? 10 minutes, 15 minutes, less than that? It's up to you.
I don't mind anything.
Okay. Want to go reload on coffee?
15 is okay, I think.
15 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got 11:06. Let's say 11:20, 11:21.
Do you mind, but only put this per examples of the age, because I want to write it in piece of paper.
Yeah, I'm gonna. You know what? I'm just gonna share this with you, so you can go into this and just copy it. Copy. So the link is. Oh, and here's my version of it. I forgot to write it down, so I just put in the chat too. And then here's the link. So just a second. So the one that I put is here. Generally speaking, there are far more coronavirus cases among youth and young adults in South Korea, while cases are far more numerous among the elderly in Italy. And I didn't talk too much about the 40 to 59-year-olds because these are very close together. So this is a very broad generalization, which is what a general overview is supposed to be. Just a quick snapshot. You look at it, the blue lines are much bigger for the younger groups among the Koreans, and the green lines are much bigger for the older people among Italians. Okay, 15 minutes. Let's go till 23 after. Okay, and I've put the link in the chat. Okay, so this is again the theme of Unit 1. The graph below shows music sales by medium from 2011 to 2018. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant.
What does by medium mean?
So, okay, good question. Do you know the word like media, as in mass media?
No. Mass media, no. But media, yeah.
So many people don't trust the mass media. What does that mean? So, okay, so you're more familiar with the use of the word medium in conjunction with size. Like I'd like a medium coffee double, right?
Mm-hmm.
Medium also means the thing through which others move. So water is a medium in which fish live. Media is the plural of medium, and media refers to newspapers, radio, TV, internet, CDs, vinyl discs, streaming, downloads. These are all different media.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so medium, this word is kind of falling out of fashion in terms of usage, but medium is the singular of media.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the big obvious pattern?
Streaming.
Streaming.
Mm-hmm. And what about the other stuff?
CDs and downloads are almost the same.
Mm-hmm. And does everyone know what vinyl refers to?
No.
Remember those big black ones? The really old-fashioned ones with the needle on the turntable?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, vinyl is a kind of plastic. It's made from oil, so it's just called vinyl, like vinyl siding or vinyl fabric. Okay, so there's not a lot of mystery in this one. If you get a graph like this, thank you very much. Don't overthink it. Who can describe the general pattern just orally before we write it down? Okay, let's start with paraphrasing the prompt and then provide a general overview. Let me ask Safa.
Yes.
Okay, so what does the graph show us? Start with by paraphrasing the prompt, the context.
Okay. The line graph shows, the line graph below demonstrate music sales by medium from 2011 to 2018.
Line graph. I'm just going to write down exactly what we said. The line graph below.
Demonstrates.
I think you said demonstrates, but maybe you caught yourself. Illustrates. Go ahead.
Illustrate. Music sales by medium from 2011 to 2018.
Okay. Now, in terms of the context, there's a couple issues. You have to paraphrase. You have to put it in your own words. Let's just take the issues one by one, though. Don't need to say below, because it's not going to be below when you actually do your writing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's not demonstrates. You could say, if you have a process diagram, you might say The diagram demonstrates how bricks are produced. The diagram demonstrates how chocolate is produced. But for these, it's always illustrates. You can always use this phrase, the line graph, or simply the graph illustrates. Music sales by medium from 20. So this is the same, which means we can't use it. And here's a rule if you're ever writing anything. 3 or more words copied from another source in order must be in quotation marks. That's like an iron rule. If you don't put them in quotation marks, it can be considered plagiarism. Does everyone know what plagiarism means?
Yeah, something taking like from the internet or from other studies and put it in your writing.
Yes, under your name.
Mm-hmm.
So look like
Yeah. So when you pass off something as your own, copied and passed off as your own. So we can't do that. So music sales, you can paraphrase by saying sales of music. Just changing the order of the words, changing the form of the words, that's paraphrasing. Now we've got 6 words still that are, we've got 6 words that are the same compared to the original. So we still have to paraphrase these.
instead and from and to, we can put between and.
Excellent. So from to is the same as between and. Now we got sales of music by medium between. Now we're okay.
We can put in instead of the medium, media.
You mean media or?
Yeah. Instead of medium, by media.
I think if we say 4 types of media.
I like that. So remember in all the examples that we looked at over the last week, the really good starting sentences that start the context don't just include this information at the very top where it says the graph below shows. So you look there, you also look at the heading of the graph, and you can also look at the axes, the y-axis, which is the vertical axis, up and down axis, and the horizontal axis. So that's what Dina did. She looked at the horizontal axis. She saw that it was 4
media.
Different media. Yes. All right, very nice. So it's going to have more detail than just that statement at the top that says the graph below shows. It's a combination of that plus the actual heading for the graph plus some of the information taken from the Y and X axes. Okay, good.
Still, we can add in America.
In America.
And maybe the unit measures. Units are measured or
America.
Billions.
In
dollar.
In billions of dollars. Billions.
We cannot say in America for billions of dollars.
Not for. If you're talking about the units, it's always going to be in kilometers, in inches, in billions of dollars.
Okay.
If you're talking about the units, in acres, in liters, yeah. All right, now what's next, Safa? General overview.
We can say generally.
General.
Sorry. Generally speaking.
Yeah, in general terms, generally speaking, either one is okay.
Music sells.
Mm-hmm.
Just 1 second. Generally speaking, music sells. Streaming music sells. Shows. Showed. I'd like to say streaming music sell increased with the increase with the increasing increasing in year or something like this.
Okay. Increase, and sorry, I didn't catch what you said after increased.
Increased. Okay. Generally speaking, streaming music sales increased. With increasing age. Actually, it's not age, increasing the year.
Increased over the years, okay. What else happened?
On the other hand, download music, CD music, and vinyl music. Decreased decreased over the years.
Okay, now you're in big trouble.
Actually, vinyl, it's not increasing or decreasing. It stay the same.
It is increasing, just not much. If you look at the, maybe I can zoom in a little bit.
From 0, it's like can catch less or almost 5% or less than 5%.
So be very, very careful. There's no percentages here.
Oh yeah.
This is billions of dollars. So this one on the y-axis represents $1 billion.
Oh yeah.
So let's round this and let's say this is $100 million in 2011, and then roughly 400 or $500 million in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to modify this a little bit.
That means I cannot connect it together with the download and CD cells.
No, no, different direction.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, and say streaming download music and CD music shows similar patterns with.
Oh, sorry.
Cells shows similar or showed similar pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Decreased over the years.
Okay. So we don't need to say that. This is fine right now. Now we're just missing vinyl. Where do we put vinyl?
Actually, we can consider it with streaming because it's also increased, but it's like different.
Right, so that's the challenge because yes, they do both increase, but the pattern is very different.
Mm-hmm. Vinyl cell also it's increased, but different pattern than the streaming.
Okay, so this is you've got this balancing act between being too general and being too specific in the general overview. So
In the
instead
general
of
overview, I have to put all the data, or
no, you got to put the big patterns that you're going to talk about.
okay.
So there's a number of ways to do this. Part of the problem is that we're using a very general verb, increased, but a more specific verb would be better. How would you describe this kind of huge increase? What's one word?
Rocket.
Dramatically or exponentially?
Rise.
Safa said the word rocket. Very close.
Soar.
Skyrocket?
Okay, soared is good. Soared or skyrocketed. Generally speaking, streaming music sales soared or skyrocketed over the years. And vinyl sales.
Vinyl sales. Slightly increased.
Mm-hmm.
Over the years.
Let's not say slightly, let's say slowly. Because if you look at the starting point, and let's say it's 100 million, and then you look at the ending point, that's, let's say it's $500 million, that's a 5 times increase, right?
Mm-hmm.
If your business increased 5 times over 7 years, you know how happy you would be? Right?
Mm-hmm.
If your business doubled in 7 years, you'd be thrilled. Here it increased 5 times over 7 years. Okay, generally speaking, stream music sales soared or skyrocketed over the years, and vinyl sales slowly increased. On the other hand, music downloads and CD sales decreased. We've already got over the years. What's a synonym for over the years for this task?
Yearly.
Increased yearly. Yeah, that's good. During the same period, over the same period, during the same time frame.
Over the mentioned period? Or the period given?
Over the given period. Not mentioned, over the given period. Over the period of the study. All of these are great. The simplest one, during the same period.
Mm-hmm.
Same time frame, that's another good one. Okay. Why don't we do some group writing? So we've got a clear division here, right? We've got 2 going up and we've got 2 going down. Why don't we put you in 2 separate groups, and I'll give you maybe 10 minutes to write a body paragraph each. So eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Let me put Dina and Rama together, and then Ala and Safa in separate groups. Okay, so I'm just going to stop sharing. I'm just going to copy this and stick it in the chat in case you need it right now.
Can you tell us which paragraph, like this group, paragraph 1?
Okay, so okay, so Ala and Safa, body paragraph 1. So Ala and Safa are going to come up with one paragraph about streaming and vinyl. And then Rama and Dina are going to come up with a paragraph about downloads and CDs. Yeah, there we go. Let's just see what our word count is. Yeah, this is good. This word count is 124, so about 120 plus the intro. Good stuff. In terms of streaming music sales, let's see if I can just get up a little bit. Sales, there was a gradual increase in the number of sales between 2011 and 2015 from 1 billion to 2.5 billions. Okay.
In editing, we put 1 billion to $2.5 billion.
Okay, good.
$1 billion as well.
Yeah, so there's a lot of issues with writing numbers like this. So general rule is like this. He has thousands of dollars. He has $2,000. He has 2,000. Okay. Is 2.5 billion or $2.5 billion. Billion is like a modifier, so we don't pluralize modifiers. Right? Good. Sort to $7 billion. Yeah, so you've already said dollars. It's completely clear from the context that we're talking about dollars. So we don't need to say it again. In 2015, the number of sales soared to 25. Okay, what's the issue?
No need to write it?
Sorry, say again?
That's mean no need to write dollars, just to put 2.5 billion.
Well, if you say from 1 billion to 2.5 billion dollars in this sentence, and then in the next one you say it soared to 7.5 billion, it's crystal clear that in this particular context we're talking about dollars still.
Okay, if you've got mentioned only once.
I don't want to give you that as a black and white rule.
Okay.
You'll have to use your best judgment. This deals with referencing. If the reference is crystal clear, don't worry. But if you find that you're talking about numbers that refer to dollars, then you're talking about numbers that refer to quantities, you might need to specify which one more often than that. But if it's only dollars throughout the whole thing, then you don't need to keep writing dollars, dollars, dollars if it's totally clear. But the issue we have here is that in 2015, the number of sales soared to 7.5 billion in 2018. Do you see the problem?
In 2015, the number of sales soared to 7.5. Oh, sorry. There is a missed sentences here. In the 2015, the number of sales we have to put comma after in 2015.
The problem is you're saying in 2015. When you use in, that's a point in time, right?
Like in 2015?
If you say in plus the year, you're referring to a specific point in time. And you've got that here. In 2015, the number of sales soared to 7.5 billion, which is not true. Because in 2015, it's at 2.5 billion. And then 7.5 billion is true in 2018.
After 2015.
Okay, so we're going to use the phrase starting from, or we can say between Oops. Between, no, I think starting from is better given this.
And we say after 2015.
Yes, after 2015. Yep, that works too. After 2015, comma. In the morning, comma, I eat breakfast. After 2015, the number of sales soared to 7.5 billion in 2018. Soared. I would say soared and reached 7.5 billion in 2018. And it's never reached 2. It's just
Yes.
reached 7.5 billion. After the number of sales soared. Good. On the other hand, vinyl showed the lowest number of sales, but slowly increased from 2011 to 2018 by almost $500 million. What? Okay, by almost
$500 million.
by almost $500
$1
million.
billion of dollars.
No. $500 million.
Billion dollars.
There we go.
Okay, because both vinyl and vinyl and streaming music are increased both. So can we put on the other hand in between?
We put.
Yeah, I mean.
It's okay.
It's okay
fine.
Because the pattern is different?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because on the other hand, the contrast is that vinyl has the lowest number of sales, but it's slowly increased. Good.
Good so far, good.
So far, so
Thank you.
good. In terms of downloads, so no need for, watch out for capitalization. If it's not a proper noun, then don't use capitals like in the middle of a sentence. Okay. In terms of downloads and CD sales, both started at almost $3 billion. Good. For the following years, the sales of downloads decreased slowly on yearly basis in 2015 when it dropped significantly. Okay. Decreased slowly on year.
On a yearly basis.
Yeah. And we can also use another phrase when this is a big problem.
Year on year?
Yep. When they dropped significantly, reaching 1 billion. Won't even let me highlight this letter. Yeah. Okay, so we got some problems in this one. In terms of downloads and CD sales, both started at almost $3 billion. For the following years, we need a different preposition here.
From?
Nope.
In the following year?
In is okay. And what's another one starts with O?
On.
No.
Over.
Over. Over a period of time. That'll be like the very common preposition that you use. Over the following years, the sales of downloads, we don't even need the sales of downloads decrease slowly on a yearly basis, or instead of on a yearly basis, as Dina said, year on year, year over year.
Year by year.
Year over year. Year over year is a common expression and when you're talking about sales. Sales of downloads decreased slowly on a year over year until 2015, when if you do this, you're getting band 6 on coherence cohesion.
drop. Because I
Why
have to put
it will
cells.
oh, this it because it will back on the
What is
yeah.
it? What is it?
When
It's because sales of download. We are talking on the same this part. We are on the same sentence. Sales of downloads.
Yeah, so it's plural.
One day.
So this is what I mean when I'm talking about referencing. This kind of referencing mistake basically automatically drops you to a 6 on coherence cohesion.
So we say when sales? Like,
when
They.
they,
Or when they.
because it's plural.
Because yeah, it's sales of downloads. As a reader, this is pretty confusing. It's not confusing right now because we're talking together about the same subject matter. But for someone who hasn't shared in this conversation, they see it, their brain starts looking for something singular. What does it refer to? Something singular. What the heck are they talking about? It causes a lot of confusion. That's why it's considered a serious issue. Reaching 1 billion. 1 billion. So it's $1, but anything over $1 is going to be $2. $1 billion at the end of the period. It's not sales belonging to CDs like this, it's just CD sales. Just use the noun phrase. CD sales kept dropping continuously from just below $3 billion to less than $1 billion.
And total,
yeah.
From this,
always in.
Okay. I want to ask, when we say download cells, download will keep the S, download cells?
Nope.
So download cells.
Exactly. Sales of downloads with the plural, download sales, because download is a modifier. It's like an adjective. And we don't pluralize adjectives.
Yeah, we make mistake in terms of download.
This is good. In terms of downloads and CD sales.
This is okay, we keep the S?
Yeah, because this is two. Yeah, it's two different items. So we don't need to say download sales, just in terms of downloads. You could say and CDs in terms of downloads and CDs. Or, this one's open to interpretation. I think you would be okay if you did in terms of downloads and CD sales, in terms of download and CD sales, download sales, in terms of CD and download sales, in terms of download and CD sales. This is okay too. In terms of downloads and CDs, in terms of sales of downloads and CDs.
Okay, I thought because we put download as modifier for sales, second sentence is only the right one, but when we put and, maybe the first one also.
It's right. Open to interpretation. Okay, and I hate saying that because we're taking our time in looking at this. But just to remind you, the examiner's reading 25 of these per hour.
Oh my God.
Right, so they have
confusion.
Yeah, so anything that causes even a little bit of confusion, they'll mark it lower. And we have these conversations where we look at each other's assessments, and then I'll share some of my writing with other examiners, and I'll look at theirs, and I'll ask them, like, why did you give this writing like a 6 on let's say task achievement, or a 6 on grammar? I thought that was much better. And they'll say something like, oh, well, I was confused by this part. And I'll say, really? I don't find it confusing at all. And then they'll reread it slowly a few times. And they'll say, oh, yeah, that's true. That makes sense. But they're never going to reread it slowly while they're actually marking it. So that's the problem. It's really unfair how little time they get to mark this stuff because they basically get paid per item that they mark. So it puts pressure on them to do it very quickly. And this results in, let's say, slightly different scores than you would get if they had more time to mark your stuff. In some cases, it's to your advantage because they will miss small mistakes. So remember, any mistake at all in the accuracy of what you say should put you below band 7. Band 7 means there are no mistakes in terms of the numbers or the percentages, just the accuracy of your data. But because they're marking so fast, occasionally they overlook stuff. But it also means that they're going to mark you lower, if anything, just on first fast read is a little bit confusing. So it's maybe it comes out to the same thing at the end. Okay.
Okay.
Any questions about this one?
No.
So what I can do now, it's 12:33. Why don't I give you the rest of class time to do your writing for this? And then you don't have additional homework. So what would be a waste of your time would be just to copy this. I suggest that you read it over several times. Read it out loud to yourself. Just feel confident that you can duplicate this or duplicate something very close to this. Put it away, don't look at it at all, and then do your writing in the forum. Okay, so it's 12:34. If you want to do that, take the next 5 minutes just to read it over several times. And the forum is already up. It's right here. I'll just put this in the chat.
What number? Unit 2?
No, it's still Unit 1, 1.28.6, because it's still related to the topic of media.
Okay.
And it's a line graph. So these are, the first unit has kind of the most basic types of writing task 1. So that's straightforward bar graphs and kind of straightforward line graphs. No mixed media. We'll get to those in later units. Okay, so I'm going to stick around if anyone wants to talk about something, but you can have this time to start writing now. Okay, so if you want to go and start writing, then that's it for today. I strongly suggest that you just read it over a few times, do your writing as best you can based on memory, and then look at it once more before Monday's deadline. It really helps to walk away from your writing and look at it with fresh eyes at a later time. Because if you look at it too soon, you're going to miss some of the mistakes you'll notice when some time has passed. Remember to read out loud. Let your ears do some of the work.
Yeah, exactly. Yesterday at night, I read my previous task. I find a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
I feel badly because this is the second time I did the same mistake.
It's just like learning anything else. It's a slow process in the beginning, but the more you do it, the faster it gets. And then at some point, it becomes automatic. Just like the medical training you undertook, just like riding a bicycle, driving a car.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, so
Okay.
thank you.
See ya.
See you. Have a nice day.
You too.
Have a nice day, guys.
Take care.
Okay, thank you. Have a wonderful weekend. Holidays weekend nowadays.
I knew someone was going to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, every day is the same, kind of. Okay. Hey, come on. The sun is coming out, I think. No, maybe it's not. But you know what? It's warm. The air is fresh. I've got the window open. I'm not freezing cold, so I'm thrilled. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Yang. I will be leaving. Bye-bye.
Oh, sorry, I had my mute on. Take care.
Bye-bye.